Hello once again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I've been on vacation, that's why it's been so long. And yeah, it was a nice vacation. And now I'm back to my stressful job, which I love so very much and get to go back to tomorrow. But that is not why I came here. I came here to welcome you, to thank you all for tuning in. My co-host has shrunk. I am here to do a review of, I had to get prepared for this one, Odd Logic's pair of incredible albums, Legends of Monta 1 and 2. Now, I've been going backwards, starting with Effigy. Amazing album. If you haven't picked it up yet, please do so. Just a fantastic album. The most amazing, epic, and well-produced thing that Odd Logic has ever done. They just to watch. This reminds me of being young again and watching an artist come out of the gate, and they come out and everything's a little raw at first, and as they get their craft going a little bit better, it's like the raw stuff is cool, but as they refine their craft, they just get better and better and better, and it's awesome. Oh, and I gotta show you something. Wait. Check it out. So remember how when I did the penny for your thoughts, I didn't have a physical copy, and Sean did a pressing. Sean did a limited pressing of Penny for Your Thoughts. So even though it's not my favorite Odd Logic album, I was very excited to get this in the mail. So thank you, Sean, for giving me number 3 of a limited pressing of Penny for Your Thoughts. I was really excited to get this, so thank you. But this week we're focusing on the Monta albums. Now I've been going backwards, but I kind of had to shift a little bit because I didn't want to do part 2 before I did part 1. So I'm kind of flip-flopping, and I'm going with the Legends of Monta part 1. And there's another one I don't have. There is no physical copies that I know of in existence. I've begged Sean for it. He said, no, I don't have any physical copies of. I got a physical copy of Monta part 2, but not part 1. So all I have is this neat little lyric sheet. Now I've been spinning this album for the longest time, but I've been spinning it on shuffle on my iPod, so I get a chance to kind of, in the works of, they kind of pop up every once in a while, and over the course of months, I've gotten to know every single one of these songs very, very well, but completely out of order. And because I don't know about you guys, but man, I used to spend 6 hours a day under the headphones when I was a kid, but nowadays I pretty much just get to listen to the music either going to and from work or at work if the job will allow me to wear some earbuds. But this is the first time, after probably having heard the songs at least 30 or 40 times, this is the first time tonight that I sat down in preparation for this review to just start the album, which I burned onto a CDR, and just go start to finish and stare at the lyric sheet, just like I did when I was a kid. And it really, really brought me back. Because I don't know about you guys, but like even when I had old-time albums, it's like if I read the album lyrics as I was hearing it for the first time, it almost took longer. I almost had to like sit down and close my eyes and like throw the cover away for the first 3 or 4 spins and just get to know the music first. And then you pick up the cover and you read the lyric sheet and you're poring over the lyrics and you're finding out what everything's about. Because otherwise the mind kind of creates expectations over what a certain song is going to sound like. And when it doesn't really sound like that, your mind is kind of thrown off. But amazing album. I was worried that it wouldn't flow as well once I heard it in context. But it's flipping amazing, and now that I'm getting the song titles in front of me because I don't have a physical copy anymore. that's not to say that, in spite of the fact that this is a great opening concept album, that's not to say that it couldn't have used some fat trimming along the way. There are some smaller portions of it that feel a little bit like B-sides. It's almost like, you know, when Savatage released Streets, a rock opera, and they always said that there was a bigger concept involved, a much larger piece, like it could have been a 2 CD set, and that they didn't do. Nowadays, you almost feel like if you actually heard that 2 CD set, that you'd probably feel like, oh, well, that didn't need to be there. Even though there's some cool stuff. That's the thing. Now, with Legends of Monta, I get a chance to hear all these things, and I've gotten so used to hearing even the small bits that I've practically memorized them, and I almost can't picture the album without any of them. But when it comes to the flow of the narrative, it can sometimes bog down a little bit. But I urge you to please pick up this album, because there are so many amazing moments. It opens, of course, with an old book opens, and a walk for destiny. So we get a chance to know this character named Nova, who is walking towards a city, and it seems to me like she doesn't even know how she got there or why. But then track 3, Beacon of Hope, the first true song on the album, introduces us to Nova as the character. And I still think this is one of Sean's, I think this is probably the single strongest opening song in, well, I mean, except for Effigy from the title, but still, if I was making a compilation CD and I wanted to punch somebody with Odd Logic right away with something short but sweet and awesome and this like great bombastic opening track, I would totally go with Beacon of Hope. As a matter of fact, I have done that. Great riff, great opening track. Goes straight into Darkness of Dreams, which is where we get a little bit more of a feel of Nova's power. And then we get, in the Sabin Dance and Man from Nowhere, we get introduced to another character. Now I have to look. Erland. He's got like a couple of names. He's the Man from Nowhere. And Man from Nowhere, another amazing track. Then we get into a couple more of those transitional tracks. They move the narrative along. And you know what's actually cool about this, though, is I've noticed that with a lot of concept albums, like let's say with Dream Theater Scenes from a Memory, they may only have 1 or 2 tracks that focus on the narrative. Everything else seems to kind of trim the fat and focus on the music. But I think even the strongest of Scenes from a Memory fans will admit that the story itself is a little bit cliched and trite, and it's basically just a vehicle for the music, which we love very, very much. I like that Sean is really focusing on the story, and a lot of his pieces seem to be very narrative driven. When you listen to the album, you can go a couple of ways, because either you can trim all the fat, focus on the music, and you've got a pure listening album, or you can focus on the narrative and have all these pieces that are driving the story, and you still get a lot of really, really cool music, but it comes across as a little bit more of a soundtrack album, if that makes any sense. And if you're really into soundtracks and a story and a narrative and music that tells a story, that just makes this album that much stronger and much more recommended. So we get into the Master Planet and Pyrie's Report, which is more exposition. Then the Governor's Death and Nova's Escape. They are kind of marriage pieces about. I'm a little confused. I'd probably have to ask Sean about, because the Governor's Death doesn't really explain how the governor dies. I get the feeling that somehow the governor has come for Nova. In any event, it seems like Nova has either accidentally or on purpose killed him. Haven't quite figured that out yet. But then she escapes and runs into another character, Gia, who's like a half-man, half-ape character, and they escape together because they have seen each other in their dreams. So a lot of visions, a lot of fate, a lot of things coming together, and then the council meeting together, and there we get the real thrust of the story, that there's a master planet with an evil king, Monta, who keeps all 12 planets in their system in line, but they've been neglecting it for a long time, so now they're just kind of out to make sure they recapture and re-destroy the 12 planets in their charge, and our heroes lie on one of these planets. Meanwhile, so as we get back to this, we get back to Erlin's story. He also has visions. He's having visions of Nova. He's driven to the great city, and now the attacks from Monta start, and that's where we get to one of the highlights of the album, Kiss of the Shadow. I'm skipping over a little bit for the sake of brevity and getting to some of my favorites, but Kiss of the Shadow is one that I absolutely would love to hear live one of these days. Just a killer, moshing metal track. Some tracks are almost, some of the interludes are almost electronic, so you really get such a great varying degree of styles. I like that a lot of the songs and the way that they are driven are very much old school. They are progressive metal, as you would imagine, much in the line of Enchant or Dream Theater, or a lot of the bands that we in progressive metal really, really love. But then Sean experiments with different styles too, and so he keeps it fresh, he keeps it original, and he even has, after Kiss of the Shadow, then we get a chance to get a little bit of a breather, and the king being by himself in quiet, in his quiet chambers, and he's grieving over the fact that his planet is falling to the forces of Monta, and we get this beautiful piano piece in Weeping in Secret. Just absolutely classic, and just fits the mood perfectly, especially after we've come down from this really heavy track, the Kiss of the Shadow. What I would consider to be like the fourth part of the album, the second half of Act 2, we get a lot of mix-up. There's really only a couple of songs that end the album, even though there's about 7 tracks. So there's a lot of exposition that ends the album, like the aforementioned Whispers in Dark Corners and Weeping in Secret. This is the piano piece, the king grieving. Sound of Evil, just kind of leading up to the first real track, which is Monta Strike, which is the actual main attack of 10,000 of the Monta forces attacking the planet of... now I'm mixing up names between the city and the actual planet itself. The city is Ashai, but the name of the planet escapes me at the moment. So Monta wins the battle, but the chosen who were chosen to find the legends of the scrolls and fight their enemies with magic and fire were not at the battle by fate. And so we get this aftermath, this pull down, and then this beautiful ending with the epic, mini epic, The Chosen Walk. It's not very long, but it just has a grandiose feel where we're beginning with tragedy and we're ending with this hope, which is going to carry us into Monta Part 2. I haven't read the story, but I know the songs. I know all the songs really well. As a matter of fact, some of my favorite songs are from Legends of Monta Part 2. So I'm actually anxious to get to it now and find out how this story that I've been shuffling around for months now is actually fitting into a flowing narrative. I highly say this time I'm really going to try and get a link to where you can pick up the Monta album from CD Baby. I believe it's still a free download, but I'll have it below. And if you're at all a fan of progressive metal, it doesn't hurt to check it out. I encourage you to... I've been babbling on and on and on about this band. I still think they are the single greatest unsung band in progressive metal today. Oh! Coast, come to my rescue. So please, check out Legends of Monta Part 1 by Odd Logic, and I will try to get to Part 2 within the next couple of weeks. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Jammin' Dude's Neighborhood.